Welcome to Who Knew. We are fans of the current series of Doctor Who, and here we discuss our likes, dislikes, and insights into the modern regeneration of the show. Subscribe, review, and listen to us on iTunes or our YouTube channel, youtube.com/WhoKnewPodcast. All our episodes are on whoknewpodcast.com. You can leave comments there or email us at whoknewpodcast@gmail.com. We also have an Instagram and Twitter account. Tweet at us at whoknewpodcast. And find us on Facebook. Today we're taking a quick trip in the Tardis with Classic Who.
Today it's Who Classic.
Today's episode is The Evil of the Daleks. It's the 9th and final serial of Season 4 of Doctor Who. It introduces Deborah Watling as the new companion, Victoria Waterfield. The second Doctor is played by Patrick Troughton, and Jamie McCrimmon is played by Fraser Hines. This serial is written by David Whitaker, directed by Derek Martinez. It originally aired between the 20th of May through the 1st of July 1967, and part 1 was watched by 8.1 million viewers. Before we get going, some more things about this is that we watched the animated version because episodes 1 through 6 were completely wiped. They were erased, and they pieced together the audio from people's private collections and various other avenues instead of BBC archives. So that's why we specifically watched the colorized animated version, because this was filmed in black and white when it first broadcast. Hi, this is Eugene. Let's introduce ourselves.
Hello, this is Kelsey.
Hi, this is Frank.
Hey, here's Josh.
Hello, this is Auburn.
TARDIS has been stolen, and the Doctor and Jamie start searching for it. Following a series of clues, including a mysterious stranger whose last words before losing consciousness is, "Where's Ken?" They also find a book of matches that leads them to a tricolor cafe. They hunt for a left-handed man named Ken. The Doctor realizes that it's a trap, but decides to continue with it. Soon, a man gives them a card telling them to be at an antique shop at 10 p.m. The man behind all this is Waterfield, who knows about the Doctor. He even has a picture of him and Jamie. His mansion has a secret futuristic room where he can communicate with unseen beings. Later, his assistant Kennedy is searching the room when a Dalek appears and kills him. At the antique shop, Jamie and the Doctor discover Victorian-era objects that appear brand new. Searching in the back, they discover the dead body. They are both knocked out by gas planted by Waterfield. Activating a device, all three of them disappear. Yeah, I thought it was funny. It starts off with them chasing after a TARDIS on a truck, or a lorry as they call it.
Right. Jogging after it.
Yeah.
And that is from the last episode, the last serial, because the TARDIS gets stolen. So it continues that way, but I think it's great. It's just a cold open.
It works as a cold open if you haven't seen the previous serial.
Right.
And
And
in
all-
that, I was going to say real quick, in that one, they bid farewell to Ben and Polly, the other companions that were with Jamie.
It's funny to do it between serials, though. Like, that is cool.
Right.
In a way that it connects it. But then, one of the things that we like about New Who is imagining the times between, like when they're
Mhm.
off having more adventures. And if you're really connecting all the serials together, even with that, like, scene work that connects directly, it kind of takes away some of that. But it was a different time.
It sure was.
Okay, I have a confession to make. This was on Voodoo, so I was able to download the episodes onto my phone and just listen to it to and from work, before making my notes, so I knew what was going on, getting an idea of it all. It is so much better as a radio drama.
Oh yeah, I can
I
imagine.
mean it. It's like you listen to it and they describe what they're doing and why they're picking things up. And so you don't see some of the other aspects. You don't see them planting the cigarettes and the matchbook. They don't see them do any of this. Oh, that's later on. But it's like there's so many different things that you don't see. You don't see the guy's overalls, which when in the animated, he's not wearing overalls. Is he? It looks more
He's
like
wearing
a jacket.
he's wearing coveralls.
Coveralls, but it looks more like a
Yeah.
jacket than anything else. So just the way I pictured it was different, and then pointing out the fact, they didn't fit right. And then he changed his personality when we mentioned the police and all this. It's like, it was such a great radio drama. The first episode really had me going, this is such a fun way to do it. Because then you find out, even in the first episode, did you leave the matches? Did you do all this? And it was just like, oh, I didn't know that. So you're finding out, you're going along with the doctor and Jamie, figuring all the oddities out. And then you're figuring out, oh my gosh, that was all planted for them to find. So they know the doctor enough that he would make these decisions and make these assumptions, or just, find out all this stuff. So as a radio drama, it was so much more fun than later on watching it for notes, going, this is it. It's like, it feels like a different story almost.
But it wasn't originally intended that way.
No.
Yeah.
But we've also talked about it many times about how, well, the story, there's something to the story. And then we're caught up a lot with the visuals. And so this one, to me, it was so much with the story. It was so convoluted at times.
Yes, it was.
It was a great catch for the first episode, I thought, of a series. It was one that just really got me, what is going on? And who are all these people? And how do they know the doctor? And they're able to fool the doctor, and the doctor catching on to that. And good work.
Yeah, Jamie's pretty savvy for someone who can't even figure out what a train is.
Well, he's a Scottish Highlander, so he's out of time.
But later on, he made the realization that the woman must have been drugged.
Yeah, so I think that goes to show you how much traveling with the doctor does sort of affect you.
Right. Never ran to a train. Plenty of drugs though.
What's funny is that in this first one, when the TARDIS is out of their reach, I was like, shouldn't you be a little bit more concerned? And they're like just hanging out at a cafe, kind of thinking what to do. I was like, that doesn't seem like the doctor that I know.
I thought the same thing. I was just like, oh, this is before they never would have done this.
Right. It just made me think of, like, if I lost my phone, I would be doing everything I can to find it. And that's how I kind of feel the TARDIS is now with the modern. Yeah. It's just so integral to who the doctor is that. Oh
my God. Can you imagine we could just live in our phones? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
it's okay.
Go on.
But then I had to remind myself, oh, this was way back when. This is a different time.
Yeah.
But it's also the story plot. All their clues are leading to this place. It's like, somehow we have to find this Ken person, and this is our leads. We're trying to find the TARDIS.
Yeah. They never, but no, go ahead, Ken.
I was gonna say, I also like that the doctor was like, yes, this is clearly a trap, but like, it's the only thing we have to go on. So eventually, it reminded me of, is it Star Wars that has that, oh no, it's like, this is a trap, and they're like, I know, I think everything is a trap, that's why I'm alive. Or is that Princess Bride? Is it Doctor Who? Like, I assume everything is a trap, and that's why I'm still alive. There's something like that. It's a quote like that. But that's what that reminded me of.
It's not Star Wars.
Okay.
I can tell you that.
That quote, I assume everything is a trap, that's why I'm still alive, is the prince from Princess Bride that's on the way to get him.
Oh, yes. Prince Humperdinck.
Yeah.
We saw the same doctor was Tomb of the Cybermen that we saw. Is that correct?
And so the serial after this is Tomb of the Cybermen.
Oh, directly after this one.
Yes.
Okay. I'm seeing both of those. Like, I definitely feel like I guess some of the tropes of television at the time, and maybe just even BBC or Doctor Who. Like, some of the characters and arcs are very similar between the two. Like, we'll get to him soon. Is his name Kelman?
Something. There's too many there's too many K's.
Kemmel, yeah.
Oh, the one with the fez?
Kemmel. I pronounce it differently, I guess.
Yes,
Kemmel.
the Turk. But wasn't there like a very similar character in Tomb of the Cybermen that was just like a silent savage brute? Yeah. And they're always like the brown ones, I mean, in the show. But like you guys said, like I think the writing is really good, and it is also of the time where it's almost like stage play, radio dramas, TV dramas. They all kind of shared a very similar aesthetic of the time. That heavily description.
Yeah.
We're gonna get a little ahead, but when I first started watching this episode, aside from the animation, I was just like, oh man, I don't know. I don't know if I can sit through this. but then the act, like just like you were saying a minute ago, Auburn, like the plot is very, I don't want to say convoluted, because I actually felt like I was like, well, what's gonna happen? Like I just kept feeling like, oh, well, that's that's something else. It's very layered. Each character had strong motivation, except for kind of like the tough, heavy guys that came in and then met their demise for whatever reason. But like, it's like, well, why are they doing that? But it wasn't ever sort of like a why, as if like, why would someone do that? It was more like, why are they doing that? What are they talking about? Like it kept leading me to more questions, and they kept giving us answers, which then led to more questions. And by like the second episode or in third, like I was kind of hooked. Like I felt like the Waterfield, was that the name?
Waterfield, yeah.
Yeah, his character, obviously the villain in the first episode, then becomes sympathetic, but you don't even. That was the weird thing. Now that I'm saying it, like, how do you? It's so odd. You're sympathizing with the villain, but you don't even know why yet, and it's because of his, the acting, and then also just the writing, like what he's saying. He's obviously not a bad guy, but he's doing bad things, or is he? I don't understand what's going on in a good way. It made me really interested, and I was really surprised because I was thinking like, I'm gonna be able to stay awake for all these. I'm watching them all in a row, but I
Yeah,
think it was probably better that I watched them all in a row.
Oh, for sure. And I remember this happened earlier this morning where Josh was like, I don't know if I can watch this type of animation because you're an animator, so you know better things that can be done. So I'm glad that you stuck through because of the story.
Yeah, to both of your points, it was very engaging, just the way it was written, and especially of the time. I was surprised.
Another thing that I found very nice was that the Dalek musical theme is very reminiscent of the Doctor's, the opening theme with the driving bass line.
Yeah,
And I was
now,
like, why don't we use that now? That's kind of cool.
so that wasn't a Dalek theme that we already know, because
No, the Dalek themes have changed since
okay,
this.
because I did notice that. I was like, that sounds a lot like the main theme.
Yeah, but you see it when the Dalek is materializing, and I was like, that's really nice.
Well, as we now know from the Children in Need video that just came out, he is partially responsible for their existence.
Spoiler, if you haven't seen that.
It's not real. It's not canon. It's fun.
Yeah.
I did like the side characters that Josh was talking about, Kennedy and them. It's like they didn't play a big part, but him and Percy and how much he pays Percy, and they felt like full characters. Not really exciting or depth or anything, but it's like, no, they're full characters. So I liked that aspect, or at least listening to it really did well. They wake up in the year 1866 in a house owned by Mr. Maxtable. He says he can explain everything. Waterfield tells them a great power is at play, and they kidnapped his daughter, Victoria. Maxtable and Waterfield have been experimenting with time travel and inadvertently brought Daleks to the house, who ordered the capture of the Doctor. Threatening him, they order the Doctor to assist them to find the reason they cannot defeat the humans. They subject Jamie to various experiments. Later, while resting, Jamie is taken by a mysterious man. The Doctor is determined to find him, and Waterfield says Jamie is essential to the Daleks' plan. They find Jamie, who is puzzled when he hears what he believes to be the Doctor collaborating with Maxtable and Waterfield. The Doctor asks the Daleks why Jamie, because he travels with the Doctor. He is the most human of all. They plan to extract the human quality by having Jamie rescue Victoria. They coerce the Doctor to manipulate Jamie's emotions. Searching the house, Jamie gets into a fight with Kemal, a Turkish man employed by Maxtable. Jamie eventually saves Kemal's life, and they begin to work together. The Doctor tells the Daleks that if they want the human factor, they must also include mercy.
I found it odd that they just time traveled to 1866. There was no like device or anything. They just woke up in the past. It was.
Well, there was a device that was in the back of the shop where the Dalek was killed Kennedy.
But the way it's done is that they get they go to sleep with the gas.
They get gassed, yeah.
And then there was no like, oh, how did we get out of here? Because to them, they don't know what's going on. They just wake up and automatically want to know the year. That seemed a little odd to me.
Well, it's a different place. And they looked, I'm sure the doctor quickly saw his surroundings and was like, this looks not like, 1966.
Right, but like
But
the doctor I know would be like, we're not in the correct time I remember being conscious in. So how did we get here? What device took us here? Like, was there a transmat? Was there something? He never asked those questions. That's what I'm getting at.
well, also the England has a history, but then England has a history. So you could have, if you left London, were taken somewhere more remote, might have that type of felt
Yeah,
there.
and they were also in an antique shop, so he could have
Right.
just been brought there. I don't know. There was a lot of things I'm like, Doctor, you're not asking what I thought you would be asking.
Right.
Oh, but speaking of that antique shop, I thought it was very smart when the doctor opened the door and went for the bell so nobody would hear them enter.
Yes.
Yes. That. So I mean, if you want to talk about this later, we can. But like, I'm really curious if they lost all this footage. How did they know little nuances like that? Is it in
They had
is it in script?
I think it's because Jamie McCrimmon is still alive, so he was able to help them.
No, I'm talking about like
Yeah,
stopping the
that's what I
girl from
mean.
the lake.
Like he was there, so he would help
Oh,
them.
you said Jay. You mean the actor?
The actor is still alive. Yes.
I'm like, I know Jamie's still alive. We saw the end of the episodes, but
It
I
says,
guess
yeah. Okay, so 1 through 6 were wiped, and there was only a tele-recording found of episode 2, and that was found through like it says a car boot sale, which I'm thinking is like a yard sale.
But you said people might have had them in their private collections or something.
Yeah, that's how they pieced together some of this, and there was audio recordings that survived as well.
yeah. And then they had, I'm sure, the script, somewhere.
Yeah, it would be somewhere.
Also,
But there were a
it
lot
doesn't
of
say
there
when
were,
they were wiped, does it? Because they
It says
probably
they
had.
were.
Go
It
ahead.
says they were wiped in 1968, and then episode 7
Oh.
was wiped in 1969.
Oh, wow, that's right after it aired. It didn't air in '67, right? I thought it might have
Yeah,
Saving money.
reran or something.
yeah, and then they found episode 2's tele-recording at that sale in 1987.
20 years.
And if you look at YouTube, look for The Evil of the Daleks, they have some of those scenes from that episode. So you can see it is very much what they animated, what was in that episode.
I was surprised looking at the live action how close the animated characters actually resembled like the live action. I was like, oh, these are like funny cartoon characters, but then in the live action they are funny cartoon characters.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, no, I could tell by the designs that these were off of real people. Like there's too many little nuances that people who made a cartoon like this would not have the ability to come up with. It was too individualized, and you'd never make a face like you'd never do that feature that way if you were just drawing it. But I will say I'm assuming that the likenesses are actually really good.
I think so.
To me, they look good from what I've seen.
I think for the Daleks, they kind of represent that like German oppression. Like, do they look like tanks? I think they've been described like that. So I'm sure that whole idea of supremacy is wrapped up in them. From that British point of view, where they were right there in harm's way during both wars. I imagine it's like in Japanese anime, you have this imagery of like nuclear explosions all over the place. Like the Daleks seem to me like an imagery of like fascism or Nazism kind of made into a space alien. But then of course it's grown from there into different things. But yeah, that's where their genesis, I think, is.
Hey.
It's this period in the story that it gets convoluted in that they give you a lot of information and there's a lot of backstory, but there's a lot of plans and deceit. So it kind of, well, when did this start? Why are they doing it this way? Why did they want to get the doctor back in time rather than just capture the doctor? It gets a little bit confusing as to what the motivation, when it all started for all the different beings.
Yeah, I do agree. So
Then once you had mind control and hypnotism and everything else.
And then coercion, and it's like, we already have enough.
Yeah.
Like they're already having Edward Waterfield being coerced into doing this because of they kidnapped his daughter, holding her prisoner. And then you have all the others. Like, do we have to give everybody such a complex sort of reason why they're doing what they're doing.
But also for Jamie to overhear that the doctor's now in cahoots, as they say, with the ones who are the bad guys. And it's like, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. And that he doubts the doctor and stands up to him. That was like, Jamie was strong in that way. That was nice.
Waterfield is having doubts about working for the Daleks. He begs the doctor to stop the experiment. However, the doctor continues the plan to place the human quality into 3 test Daleks. Maxtable is getting impatient with them because he wants the secret of alchemy that they promised. Jamie and Kemmel find Victoria, but are soon found out by the Daleks, and Victoria is taken away again. Jamie meets up with the doctor, and Kemmel soon finds Victoria. He is ordered to take her into the time travel cabinet. The doctor and Jamie find the test Daleks just as they are waking up. Jamie is furious with the doctor for working with them, but soon changes his mind when the test Daleks wake up to act like human children. This was the doctor's plan, and he soon teaches them about friendship. They begin to search for the missing Victoria again. Maxtable and Waterfield are fighting, and Waterfield is knocked out. Maxtable leaves with the Daleks to go to Skarro. The doctor and Jamie find Waterfield, who tells them the Dalek plan, and they all head to Skarro as well.
Well, they
You said
have
something
to,
that
otherwise
didn't-
they'll be blown up in the house.
It's like, what is this device? It's a bomb. So this whole time travel corridor thing in the animation, it doesn't look like mirrors. I don't know if you noticed that it just
cabinet?
looks, yeah, the cabinet. So, but then looking back at Turn Left, they use mirrors on Donna to have her time travel. So mirrors used for time travel is not a new thing, I guess, or maybe this is the first time in Doctor Who, but they've used it since.
They talked about the mirrors, and that's how they somehow inadvertently got the Daleks. They opened some kind of portal for the Daleks to come
Oh,
through.
yeah.
So the
but
Daleks
I'm
device.
talking about the way they animated the mirrors. I didn't get that they were
Oh.
mirrors, but it just looked like a very tech-spaced cabinet
Yeah,
portal
yeah.
that they walked into.
Oh, that's what you're talking. Okay, yes. I didn't even know they were either.
Yeah.
I do like the animation of that cabinet that they left the doors like flimsy, like
Yeah.
they would have been on set.
Yes.
Like they
Yes.
animated them like kind of flip-flopping out and not really solid.
Yeah, and the sound really synced up. Like I kept feeling like it was plywood. Like it made me feel like it was really real.
That was good.
Yeah. Something that threw me at first, and then I guess I just forgot about it, but now I'm remembering again that so they were experimenting with time travel, and then they discovered time travel. Then these robots come, and this guy's like, "Forget time travel. Can you make me gold?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
Yeah.
just forgot. They just broke the laws of physics. I guess alchemy is breaking the laws of physics as well, but like never thinks like this is a smart man. Never thinks, well, with time travel, I can go get gold.
See, and I thought
Yeah.
maybe he didn't, because they just opened a portal, it wasn't actual time travel until the Daleks took control of it. And so he wanted that formula to go, how does the time travel? How do I, the same with you, Josh, because like,
Yeah,
I have
yeah,
time travel.
exactly.
This is the big thing, not,
I-
you're going for
They kept
gold? Don't you know what
Yeah,
you can do with time travel?
Yeah, they kept hiding, like you were saying, like the double layers of deceit, which
Right.
were interesting. And then when he just wanted to make metal gold, I was like, okay. Just as a nerd, I'm like, well, isn't time travel more important than alchemy? I guess to kind of link it together is he could have had a line or explained I was experimenting with time travel to find more gold, like something like link it, like the reason I even did that in the first place
Right.
was to become more rich,
Were,
whatever. So
were they selling stuff in the future on their own? Like, was that their own scheme, or was that
Yeah.
also because the Daleks?
story wise, it was a front for them to have an excuse to have a place in the future. Well, there are antique shops around here. Let's make an antique shop, and we'll just bring our antiques for, they don't have to like acquire antiques, they just bring it.
I just felt like that would be the way to make money instead of making gold, is to take things that are commonplace for you and then selling them for a higher retail value.
But 20th century money isn't going to be worth anything back then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but then go forward again. I don't know.
Well, converted
Yeah.
into something else that
Yeah,
can still work.
exactly.
Converted into
Silver,
gold.
Right.
silver gold. But it's also what confused me was it their plan or was it the Daleks trying to get the Doctor? Is that why they set up
Oh,
this
so it may
shop?
have been
So
like
that because the Doctor was going to be there at that time, and it's like
that.
it
Like,
wasn't
yeah, because
explained. And that's where it got okay. Now I'm really confused. I love the
Yeah.
opening part, the opening episode, but then I wanted it more explained as to
yeah,
that.
because they were leading, because later on when they have her call out her name, that's even, it was lame. Like it was to lure. The whole thing was the Daleks luring them into traps. That itself could have just been like set a really bad trap so the Doctor will see it and just think people did it wrong.
Right.
Could be.
But it's just I don't know. That's what I meant by convoluted.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's
I liked how the Daleks the to get the human, what do they call it, the
Factor.
human
Factor.
essence, oh, the
Factor.
human, yeah,
Factor.
the human factor, that they were doing that by like observing Jamie or getting the data from Jamie and Kimmel as they went and
Mhm.
rescued Victoria. I thought that was like, I thought that was really neat how, and then the twist of what the Daleks were actually doing. Like, and I feel like you have to watch this, like these these 6 episodes and seven episodes. You have to watch these 7 episodes, and as soon as the plot turns, you kind of have to just forget everything that already happened. You're like, that doesn't matter anymore. This is the plot. And if you do that, like, it might be more enjoyable.
and going back to something that was said earlier about how they're narrating what they're doing, but then they're not talking about the things that we just talked about with the antique shop. I feel like they focused on well, again, we're modern viewers, not
Yeah.
thinking about that stuff. But I don't know. I think if they did kind of rewrite it for a modern sensibility, it would be better.
Sure.
I think it would be more enjoyable as far as connecting these things that we're sort of picking up on, but they're not necessarily dropping in place for us to pick up on.
Yeah, but like we're saying, I just think that back then that wasn't the focus
Yes,
of writing
absolutely.
like
Yeah.
this. But
Yeah. And I'm coming at it from like 40 years later. So of course I'm gonna
hindsight.
say.
Well, now TV is TV. TV. Oh my God, TV is movies. TV shows are movies.
I like that Jamie and Kamel saved each other and then worked
Mhm.
together, finding out, again, they're both being manipulated. So they took it on their own to fix that. I thought it was a good partnership. I liked how they worked together.
Well, what you were saying earlier, Auburn. Did I interrupt you, Frank?
Oh, no, go ahead.
What you were saying earlier, Auburn, about the the only diverse brown person is the one, he's the strong man. He can't speak or this, that, the other. But a lot of the story was to prove, like, it was a lot of the story that focused around him was to prove anti-racism, but they used racism to do it.
Yeah.
It was a very Caucasian way of see, these people do deserve our respect. Aren't they quaint?
Yeah. And then, like we mentioned, they do it again in the next serial, Tomb of the Cybermen.
Right.
When the hybrid Daleks wake up and their kids, those are some of the scariest Daleks I have ever seen. It was just so odd. I mean, it was funny, the train and it's going around, and when he gives them their names and they all just
With
recite
like
it.
a marker. It was so weird.
Yeah. Well, he needed to be able to tell them apart.
Yeah.
But it was just bizarre. It was just odd.
I almost can't imagine that live action now with Patrick Troughton riding on top of a Dalek and them going ring around the rosy type of thing.
I don't know. I want to say I saw it on YouTube, but I'm not sure now that if my mind just is playing tricks on me because of the animated and then listening to it again. It's just sort of, I wonder if my mind made it, but I thought on YouTube they had that scene or part of it. I'll have to look for that. The three men's presence set off an alarm in the Dalek city and are soon captured and taken to the Emperor Dalek. In the search, another Dalek encounters one of the humanized Daleks who is quite cheerful. The Dalek leads him away. The Doctor tells the Emperor that he has lost. The humanized Daleks will revolutionize all of Dalek kind. But the Emperor tells the Doctor that by discovering the human element, they have also found the Dalek factor, making everyone relentlessly evil Daleks. He orders the Doctor to spread the Dalek factor among human history. The Daleks put the Dalek factor into Maxtable, while elsewhere one Dalek refuses the orders of another. Maxtable attempts to convert the Doctor, but it fails. The Doctor changes some settings on the conversion device. Pretending to be converted, the Doctor goes with Maxtable to see the Emperor. He suggests that all Daleks are converted to have the Dalek factor inserted into them. This causes the Daleks to become humanized and causes a civil war between the factions. Waterfield dies saving the Doctor, and the Emperor is killed. The Doctor and Jamie escape along with Victoria, and they all quickly leave.
So I think this is the first time we see an Emperor Dalek. We've seen it in modern Who, but in classic Who, I think this is the first time.
I like the animation. Do you know how closely that resembled what they built?
Yeah, like a bigger Dalek with a more domey type of head. Yes, that's yeah.
Nice.
And not having seen this like before, this past 2 weeks, being my first time watching this, I was like, oh, we're going to Skarro already? That's kind of quick.
Right.
So I did not realize that the second Doctor went to Skarro. And so now you know why we're doing this one, because the 12th Doctor went to Skarro, fought the Daleks, and now we're connecting it this way.
There's also a connection I was meant to mention earlier where they speak about mercy.
Yeah.
Because that whole episode that we just did was the main plot. Like,
Yep.
so I thought that was sort of a callback to this, and this was going to infuse something that they drew from, and it was going to link up. But now I see it's just two totally separate things. I mean, they may have thought about it, but
that's also part of why we do these classic Who things, to see sort of themes that are connected, not necessarily by screenwriters, but by characters.
Mm-hmm.
Was this actually supposed to be the end of the Daleks from what I
Yes.
read?
Yeah. This was intended to be the final battle with the Daleks and the Doctor. And then Terry Nation was supposed to do a spin-off series of the Daleks in the US, but then that didn't happen.
Just the Daleks?
Just the Daleks. The Daleks was to spin off into its own TV series in the US. Yes.
how was that gonna work?
I don't know.
It didn't work, so
That's why it didn't work.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure like this would have been like 60s, 70s, so they're just on the verge, right, of all these toy empires breaking into pop culture, and selling some Dalek toys to a bunch of American kids probably was a dream of some BBC.
Those 3 humanized Daleks, I thought in my own headcanon, I'd like to think that they are the cult of Skarro that we meet with the 10th Doctor. And that's how you get Dalek Khan, who's a little bit more free thinking, and like the cult of Skarro was around to think abstractly and not like a Dalek to win wars and how to do things like that. So to me, that's kind of how I'm connecting these two together.
No, I like that a lot. I mean, obviously the New Who people were aware of these episodes. It would have been really ingenious for them to link it up in such a way, because it's kind of obvious. So much in this storyline can be applied, can be peppered into and connected to so much of the new storyline. Why not just do it?
When the human Daleks, why?
They're like children.
The kids, aren't they?
Yes.
It's like, no. But
why is the sky green? Why?
The sky's green?
Or blue, whatever.
On Skarro.
That's
On
okay.
Skarro.
We'll say that. Sure.
I think it's red on Skarro.
Shush. And with Waterfield, it was a good transition. I did like him weighing the ethics of it, where Maxtable has no ethics. It's all, well, they won't be convicted. We won't be convicted by it.
Right.
These people
No
are
court
dead, but we're not going to have any residual effects for us.
Like, I think he said,
Nobody
like, he said no court in the land will convict. I'm like, what are you talking about?
And the Waterfield is, why would my daughter's life be worth more than all these others? I mean,
Yeah.
yes, he has a
Mhm.
tie to her, but he can see the larger picture, which was a really hard question, and I like
Yeah.
that. And the reason I think they really had to just kill her father off and kill Kemmel, which I was really upset that they killed him. They didn't need to.
Yeah.
Especially since the next episode had a character similar, where they could have had him and then he could have sacrificed himself then for saving them, but was so that she had nothing to go back to, so she can go with the Doctor and Jamie.
Yeah, because we've seen
That's
that
a good
again.
point.
We've seen that with the 12th Doctor, where people like Journey Blue is the one that comes to my mind, where she feels like she has nothing left to live for in this kind of war situation that she's in. But the Doctor's like, nope, not going with you. You're not coming with us.
Right.
But Frank, going back to Kemmel's death, it felt very like contrived because Maxtable is being mind controlled by the Daleks. Kill, kill, kill. And then as soon as he kills Kemmel, the command to return to Skarro is given. So he just, that's it. He doesn't kill Jamie. He doesn't kill Victoria.
I'm wondering, was it more of Kemmel protecting the other two? Because in the
I think it was supposed to be.
animated,
It
just
doesn't
seemed like
feel
they were
that-
going after
yeah.
him first. And it's like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it was supposed to be, and maybe in the live action version originally, it was more apparent. And it also too, like this guy's supposed to be stronger than everyone, and he's been surviving all these fights and fought Jamie. You know, I mean all this stuff like this, and this old man pushes him off a cliff.
yeah.
Right.
And then may I add, the one who is mute lets out an audible scream.
Yes, he does. I would have liked to have seen that come across visually, that he was protecting them, because it did not come across like that at all.
It seemed that was the way to kill a lot of things in these episodes. Like they just shove a Dalek against the wall, shove a Dalek off the balcony, shove these, you know. It's
Well,
just like,
that shows some ingenuity. I never thought a rope could kill a Dalek.
yeah, I know. We use this rope. We can make it bump into the wall. That'll surely do it.
Well, into the fireplace, over the
Yeah. All right. Cartoon logic. It's
There,
probably a lot easier to buy in a cartoon than in person.
there was definitely some graphic Dalek deaths that I'm sure they would have been just as graphic in the live action, because I've seen some of those with the goo and the things happening.
Oh,
Yeah.
The ones on Skarro, that one.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
they went pretty far in some of these. I'm watching Rick and Morty as well right now, and sometimes they do blend a little too closely together,
They do.
like the classics and even the modern Doctor Who, and like with what Rick and Morty are riffing off of them.
Yeah.
Did they have the Halid's body inside the Daleks in that time frame in '67?
So
Or
they
was just Daleks with something alive in it, but
well, in the second serial of the first Doctor, which is Daleks, I think in one of the later episodes of that serial, there is a little tentacle type of thing that
Okay.
shows that wiggles out of a destroyed Dalek. So
I couldn't remember.
yeah, it's not that full formed single eye octopus looking like thing that we know in modern Who, but it was definitely tentacle in nature.
And I remember we talked about it before, I think in Daleks in Manhattan, in that I see one eye open and one eye has been like almost permanently closed because they're just looking
Yeah.
through the eye
Yeah.
stalk.
Yeah, and I think there's even there's remnants of a face that is just
Right.
sort of like drooping, and that looks like it just could be goo or whatever like that.
I just think that was a
Seems
really
like-
good idea for it. I thought
Yeah.
it was really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, because these Khalids and Thals are humanoid, so it would make sense.
Right. And the Doctor saying that he wasn't human, he didn't say that. He said, I'm not from Earth. So
Yeah.
that he was not being converted like the others. It's like, I forgot how much of a Time Lord and Gallifreyan was he at this time? Was it still humanoid, or was it human, but now from a different planet, which had different aspects to it? So
Mhm.
it was just sort of, when he said that, I'm not from Earth. Oh, that's an interesting way to put it from what we know now. He wouldn't have said that. And
Yeah, and then that leads me to when the Daleks were like, we want Jamie, we don't want the Doctor, but we needed the Doctor to get to Jamie. And then he's like, why don't you want me? It's because you're not all human, or not.
Right.
You're something else.
They
He traveled
said
the time too much.
You traveled in time too much.
Yeah.
They didn't like, because the first thing I thought was, well, because he's not human, and then
Yeah.
they said that, and then and then I was like, oh, is this pre-canon, with that? But then later on I realized, oh, they needed to kind of like skirt that issue so the plot point later that he doesn't get zombified works.
Mhm. And I think at this point, I don't know if Time Lords or Gallifreyans is a thing in the show yet.
He mentioned his home planet, but he did not name Gallifrey. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because we know he's an alien. We just don't know much more than that.
And that he can regenerate. So
Yeah.
that was something that was big and different.
That also kind of took away from that sacrifice of who was it?
Water-filled.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because he saved the doctor, but like I know, well, the doctor would have just regenerated into a new person. So
Right.
your life's over, buddy. But the doctor would have been fine.
If he said that on his deathbed, oh, well, don't worry about me. I would have just regenerated. What?
Yeah. I also noticed, I think on Skarro, there was a chair behind one of the characters. And I was like, oh, there's a chair. What's that doing there? Yeah. Looked like a stool.
I think I think that was one of the most brilliant, like, meta lines in the whole series in the more recent episode with Capaldi.
Waterfield's such a tragic character, which was great, but Max
Yeah.
is such a selfish dweeb, and just for money and taking no responsibility for any of it, and then also playing the victim. It reminded me of the guy on Titanic, the episode. I can't remember who he was. I can't remember his character's name now.
I want to
But
say
he was
Max.
the rich guy who Max.
Yeah.
Was it?
I want to say Max, but it's
Because Max is the other one. I'm thinking the one that they were trying to save on the Titanic in the Poseidon Adventure part, when they were all going with the husband and wife who were dressed in fancy clothes rather than stylish. And there's a rich guy that was there who was
yeah.
with them. It just was like, you're useless. And he's like, I have all the money. Don't worry. You know, get me out of here. I'll pay you something. It just had that kind of a character. It's just that almost a trope of a character. It's just the only thing important is what's around him, and no one else's life matters at all.
I'm looking that up. Or is it Rixton? Because see, that's a name I would never remember. Yeah, Rixton Slade.
Okay.
A name I was never going to remember, so put that on
You're
trivia
welcome.
next time.
We're planning for that. That's a good one. We got to put that on there. Okay.
The doctor, I mean, this is a little before it was more part of, I think, his personality in the New Who. Like, our doctor, the newer doctor, would have somehow communicated to the Emperor, this is your chance to not do this.
Yeah.
He was
Yeah.
very quick to just basically almost trick them into violently destroying themselves. You know, so the doctor has become more about, like, I have checkmate unless you relent. This is your chance, like giving them their chance. But maybe that's a post-Time War doctor, maybe.
Well, the thing that I used to rationalize that is that this was supposed to be the final Dalek story. And then they added that bit at the end where that surviving Dalek has that glint of light in its eye stalk.
Oh, I missed that.
Yeah.
I actually missed that.
So that's why I think that quote unquote justifies the Doctor wanting to destroy the Daleks so completely in this.
Well, yeah, but that's a production issue. Like, I'm just talking story.
Sort of production as well, because like we want to we don't want to revisit this villain anymore, so let's kill them off.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, it was a production decision. Like, if you're going to talk about who the Doctor is now, the Doctor we know now wouldn't have been that way. But he basically, you know, honorably manipulated the Daleks with the human factor to literally go in and kill the Emperor. Like, the Emperor was not going to be turned in that scene. And it felt very violent to me, considering who the Doctor is nowadays. That's all.
I remember
Yes.
also feeling the manipulation of the childlike brains was also kind of weird.
Yeah. It was an acceptable inconsistency. That's all I'm saying.
And I'm not trying to argue with you. I'm just saying this is probably why it seems that way.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But I don't. But I guess I'm asking the question. I guess I'm asking is, was that what do you want to call it?
Like a new thing,
It was,
like a new
what?
thing for the character, the
Yeah,
Doctor as a character.
was that altruistic point of view present in these classic Who's?
No.
Well,
Uh,
yes, in some, but not at the beginning. I mean,
yeah, that's what I was
because
gonna say.
I'm sorry.
It wasn't that way. It's okay. I was gonna say that it's not that way for the first and the second Doctor at least. The first and second Doctor are a little bit more hardlined.
Right.
And then once we get into the third Doctor and the fourth Doctor, there's that sort of choice that is given.
Right. Now, it's not that I minded it. I just found it interesting knowing more about New Who than Classic Who.
Yeah. So Josh, you want to talk about the animation?
Well, I can go on a whole dissertation about it. So I'm actually I'd like to start off with like what you guys thought and what questions you may have or things you wanted to point out, and I could elaborate.
Well, the running was very Scooby-Doo like.
What, the writing?
The running. When the characters ran.
Yeah.
Or really walked even.
Yeah, it's some scenes weren't so bad, but overall.
Yeah, I felt like the close-ups were a little better because you could see not 3D movement, but you could see like they weren't just statically looking in one direction. You could see their faces kind of move from an isometric angle. And it reminded me a lot of Archer, the way that's done.
Yeah, it's just
yes,
like that.
but then the gaunt eyes and everything, the way that they were just so separated with the shadowing was, to me, distracting. It was why they all look like vampires.
Yeah.
And with Victoria, her look reminded me of the early 70s cartoons. You know, there was Speed Buggy and all these that were the CBS lineup. Like there was just very much that base to it.
Josie and the Pussycats.
Yes.
Jabberjaw.
Do you guys have any questions before I go into a thing, which I will keep relatively brief?
Well, it just felt like this is almost an upgrade of what they had done with some of the other ones, but still trying to keep in that same type of animation style.
Is that a question?
Yeah, so did they just want that to be the animation style that they've done from the beginning, or was it done just to be inexpensive?
Yeah, so basically this is the type of animation that makes me want to throw a chair out the window. They're using 3D computer-generated animation to emulate two-dimensional animation, traditionally hand-drawn. A lot of the sets and the Daleks were all three-dimensional, and you could see them move in space. And what they did here, from what I can tell, I'm probably wrong about a few of the details, but they used the same technology. They built their characters from 3D imagery. That's why they look so accurate and consistent from view to view. But they then only took like 2 to 3 views. They took face on, 3/4, and profile, and then they made a 2D image. And then they would manipulate those to kind of like go from one to the other. So if you watch when they turn, that's why they turn so quickly, because there is no in between 3/4 and front view and side view. They'll kind of move their heads around like this, because then what they do is they rig that flat two-dimensional puppet to, like, their hair will have movement, the eyes have movement, the eyebrows have movement. So basically they made a point to get really good likeness, so it stays consistent, and then they just rig. I'm trying to think of a different word that's more everyday, but that's, like they rig
puppeteer
all
so that
they rig all of the elements on the face and the bodies to be puppeteered. Now the face is a lot easier because it's all kind of contained, but that's why the bodies looked all weird and wrong, and their shoulders disappeared when they moved, and their arms were too long, and they couldn't run properly, and all these things, because it went from these drawings, or these fake drawings, were basically made from a pose from a three-dimensional thing, and then they actually had to fake moving the limbs around, because they don't move around in that space. Like, if you watch, never did an arm go towards camera from side. It was always held there, and the hands pop into different positions. And at first I thought, well, maybe that was designed and drawn, but I'm pretty sure, because you could tell by the way it was rendered. That's another thing that they did, is that it's rendered to look like a hand-drawn drawing, a hand-drawn cartoon, where it has lines defining all the features and everything. So that way, it was easier to blend the CG three-dimensional imagery with the 2D computer-generated imagery. Now, why would they do that? Probably because of render time, because it takes much longer to render those images, and just doing the flat puppetry takes a lot less computer processing, takes a lot less time, and a lot less, I don't want to say skill, because it's a whole other skill to animate those puppets in a way that works when they are so limited, where they're not moving in 3 dimensions. But it's a lot less complicated than making sure everything works well in 3 dimensions. So, and since the characters need to be animated so extensively, that animation probably saved them probably would have been probably anywhere from 10 to 100 times more expensive for that to be fully 3D rendered with the characters. So the cheaper and faster way to do it was to make them flat puppets, and you just manipulate it the way that Archer or other shows have been doing like that, and you make the simple shapes like the backgrounds and the things that they're holding, and the Daleks, those can be 3D because they only move very simply, and we can also push the camera in and out. But that's why they never bend over. Like, if you notice, whenever they change position greatly, it cuts away to something else, then it cuts back. Like, even when she was putting things in her lap when she was in her cell, it cut away and cut back, and now they're all wrapped up. That's not something that puppetry, because even the cloth has to become a puppet, and and there's no joints in a cloth, so it's not really going to be puppetized. It's going to be kind of like warped and manipulated for it to kind of move. Then they cut away, and now it's all wrapped up. So editing plays a big part in that too. People were also missized because they needed a character to be big here and another character to be small there, but this character was taller. So when they can't and if they lowered the camera so we can do that, then the perspective on the background would be wrong. And there's just, so basically it's making it look like a drawing, but not using anyone for the most part who draws. So it's kind of like the AI problem that we are having today. It's taking away the hand-touched human element, but most to the layman's eyes, to everyday people, just looks like a cartoon. It looks like old Scooby-Doo. I guess what's the difference? The difference is they just basically took away a whole trade of people, artistry and skill, and also too, like, they moved terribly. They moved as well as they could, giving the limitations. I actually think they did a pretty good job considering the limitations of what they were dealing with. But it's just like, I guess all those people who knew how to animate and draw and bring the magic into the field just don't matter anymore, because they just can do it a hell of a lot cheaper this way, and no one's going to care it doesn't look good. And that's also a thing of like, well, then why, as an animator in the world today, it's just like, well, why am I even bothering to show people what I can do if they think it's just as good as this crap? And and like I said, I'm not calling what we just watched crap, because, as I said, I think I could tell the limitations of the puppetry that they were dealing with, and I actually think they did a really good job considering, except the walking. But like the acting on the faces, I really think it was quite good. Like, I was really matched the vocal performances very well, and there's some awkward staging, but considering what they were dealing with and this, that, and the other, but it's kind of an affront to someone like myself. And when was this made, Eugene?
This is recent. Hold on.
Are we talking 2009 or 2000 teens, 20?
The teens, I want to say. It was released in September 2021, so they had probably worked on it in 2020.
Right. So it was late enough in the fact, during the animation timeline, historical timeline, where hand-drawn animation had, though the people, the hand-drawn animation artists were already starting to lose their jobs and have to do other things and try to figure out how to remain relevant. So when the fact that this was produced, obviously they've tried to find out how to do it as cheap as possible. This is our budget. What can we do for this? Well, we can do it this way. Great, do it with British accents. Um, it it's very heartbreaking for me to watch this. Considering that, I still got into the story like we were talking about earlier. Like I was like, I don't know, like watching the first episode was very emotionally wrenching to me because of what me and my people have been going through for the last, I'd say, 10 years. But I put that aside. I started actually like, well, what is he talking about? What's going on? Well, why is he saying that? Why is he doing this? So, to the credit of the writing of this, pretty darn good. But that's the deal with the animation. That's why it looks that way. And like I said, like if they're gonna, it is. I will say this, like as a filmmaker and a just like how we always talk about, oh, it's really great to see the ingenuity of how they cheat reality to make films. This was another way to do it. They took, they couldn't afford to do all CG, but they can do CG this way. Well, if we can't do CG with the characters, well, but we can make the CG 2D by using CG, and then it'll cut your costs by, tens and, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And the way, and as a credit to the animators who were given these very rudimentary puppets, they did a pretty good job. And like if I wasn't an artist and I was just a producer, and thinking, if we render it with as line art, which I think is called toon rendering, toon rendering, we can marry seamlessly the 2D with 3D, and no one will be the wiser. So, like, great, do it that way. That's what they say, not me. It's just, people like myself we're like the remnants of the dinosaurs or whatever. I said it's like being a traditional animator is almost like how Yiddish is becoming a dead language. It still exists. Some people still speak it in their households and this, that, and the other, but it's dying out. And at some point, no one will be speaking Yiddish anymore. And at some point, no one will be. The only people who will be drawing traditional animation are very few and far between, and they'll be doing it as a hobby, and they'll be doing it to learn how to do the principles of CG animation. So traditional animation is akin to Yiddish.
I knew we were going to do some of these restored animation episodes because the live action stuff just doesn't exist. So I'm glad you were able to get kind of past that technical aspect.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have the money, this is the way to do it. I totally see that. It's just things like this are starting to affect my life, so right. it's a little difficult.
Yeah, I appreciate the technical honesty that you gave there, though.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, it's like when you look at South Park. So when I first started watching South Park, and people say, "Oh, the animation's no good," and I'm like, actually, the animation is very good. Considering that this isn't a human shape. Like the shapes in South Park, they just kind of bounce around and do different little things, but it behaves humanistically. And a good animator can turn, a hopping table lamp into something that makes you feel something. So I kind of look at what we just watched sort of like I look at South Park. Like, it made me think and feel. So, kudos to them. But it doesn't look anything like the animation cells that are behind Frank's head right now.
Yeah.
Or I guess the stuff behind.
Or Iron Giant. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been keep looking at that poster as you talk.
Yeah.
Okay, so going through the cast real quick, we talked about the Doctor and Jamie earlier. So we have Deborah Watling. This is her first appearance as Victoria Waterfield. She will continue on with the show until 1968 with The Wheel in Space. And then we have John Bailey playing Edward Waterfield, Marius Goring playing Theodore Maxtable, Alec Ross playing Bob Hall, Griffith Davis playing Kennedy, Jeffrey Colville playing Perry, Joe Rowbottom playing Molly Dawson, Bridget Forsyth playing Ruth Maxtable, Gary Watson playing Arthur Terrell, Windsor Davis playing Toby, and Sonny Caldinas playing Kemel. He was the mean Mongolian in Raiders of the Lost Ark. He had a lot more makeup in that scene in the Ravenwood's sort of bar type of thing. Yeah.
And I think he was actually white. And they actually put some makeup on him.
Yes, they
forehead
did.
Exploded.
Yep. And then he also played Kra in The Man with the Golden Gun, James Bond movie. And then our Dalek operators are Robert Jewell, Jared Taylor, John Scott Martin, Murphy Gumbar, Ken Tyelson, and the voices of the Daleks were Roy Skelton and Peter Hawkins. All right, so the evil of the Daleks can be found now on Tubi. There's a bunch of classic Who that they have put up on their streaming service for free. A lot of the Second Doctor's serials are kind of lost. So if you go onto Tubi, I'm surprised they have as many of the animated ones as they do because they're relatively new.
Interesting.
And this is also on DVD. It was released in 2021, like we mentioned earlier. And it's got the DVD has both the black and white version and the colored version, which we watched. So yeah, if you have time for checking out the Second Doctor, Patrick Troughton, I'd say I'd recommend Evil of the Daleks.
I recommend listening to it.
I think it's funny that Daleks consider birds flying pests.
Well, pigeons are a pest in New York.
And they can't really like wave them away, so they probably get...
Despite my feelings about this type of animation and everything, I would rather them have done what they did to keep this story, available so that people can watch.
Yeah.
The budget for this, according to IMDb, was an estimated £500,000.
Yeah, it wasn't even $1 million. I mean, that's what I'm saying. If you were to animate this thing properly, it would be a few million. So that's basically, it's like, well, what can we do to, so people can watch this? No one's going to listen to it like a radio play. We can, it's going to cost us millions of dollars. Well, can we do it for less? So there you go. That's the thing. Somebody wanted to do this and was willing to front up this much money for it, and that's all the money that was allotted. And how can we possibly I'm sure they took it originally to they asked the animation studio, we're gonna do a Doctor Who, we're gonna recreate, this is gonna be awesome, and then they said for this much money, it's just like, all right, we're gonna have to call you back and see if this is even possible. And then they had a bunch of meetings on how can we do this, and then some guys, we could do it this way, and then that we could do it this way. It was probably trying to get the Apollo 13 astronauts back. How can we get them back without killing them? How can we get this on screen for this much money? And that's what they figured out.
Yeah, and like you said, I'm glad that this exists so that we have something to watch, because where we wouldn't have anything at all.
Yeah.
So if you look at it like that, yeah. So that wraps up the Evil of the Daleks. Thanks for listening, stay safe, and we'll see you next time when the future becomes the present.
You just listened to an episode of Who Knew?
Our wonderful theme music is by Michael Grady.
Find him on Facebook at The Universe Explodes.
Additional music is by Damiel Paggio.
Additional music by Paul Ohlers.
All our episodes are engineered by Auburn, and you can find him at auburnbinkley.com.
You can also find this show in several places.
Follow us on Twitter at Who Knew Podcast.
Subscribe, review, and listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts,
or on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Who Knew Podcast.
All our episodes are on whoknewpodcast.com.
Visit our Facebook page.
Please leave comments, reviews, and click like to support Who Knew Podcast.
To listen to our show on your Amazon Echo device, subscribe to us on Amazon Music,
and then ask your Amazon device to play your podcast subscriptions.
This podcast is inspired by Doctor Who,
the longest running sci-fi show in history,
and especially the revival spearheaded by Russell T. Davis.
Thanks to Russell, Sidney Newman,
Verity Lambert, Ron Grainer,
and all those involved in the adventures of our favorite Time Lord.
Your work continues to inspire and entertain.
Oh, I guess I didn't, I don't recall her being this person. I'd be curious to watch that again, going right into it.
She wasn't animated then.
Yeah.
Okay, I vaguely remember that. She never said, "I'm not bad. I'm just drawn this way."
And
Hey, I'm
they-
in the middle of recording the podcast. Oh, okay. Oh, I have.
He's not alone. There's someone in the house.
Yeah, sorry, my mom's here. I'm leaving
Hi.
right after.
do you need to take care of something?
No.
Oh, okay,
She's
okay.
she's here to take me to the airport after we get done recording.
Okay.